Did you know that trust the process is not a concept or a phrase that Mikel Arteta started? No, it's not. And what's interesting is that somebody started using it a lot, and from there it became a very famous phrase to use in the sport and then in business. And that's the new managing director in the, I think it's 1996, of the Philadelphia 76ers, who started talking about process in that period. And partly because the process wasn't going as well as it should have been, he decided to have T-shirts with "Trust the Process" in it, and banners that he gave to fans to bring to the stadiums, "Trust the Process." And out of which, eventually, because success came, he defended the concept which others started using, first in football and then, in sports, and then in other sides of the industry. And trust the process is where we're going to be talking here. What's interesting here is that the three guest speakers that we got today have gone through a different processes themselves. And I'm just going to say the name I would like and your role, and I would like you to tell us a little bit about yourselves in relation to your role right now and to the process you've been involved in, if that's okay. So first we've got Cliff Grant, who's the chairman of Brentford FC. Tell us a little bit how you got there and a bit of your process.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and having spent 29 years acting for owner-managed businesses, I left the profession and joined a client of mine as CFO. The owner of the client company then bought Brentford in 2012, and I was appointed a director of the board on the acquisition of the club. I then became chairman in 2013. The owner then bought a club in Denmark in 2014, and I became a director of that club. And then in 2022, I became chairman of the club in Denmark. So I've been involved in football now for the best part of 12 years, and it's been quite a journey for those who follow Brentford or know of our journey. We've gone from League One to the Premier League, and there can be no truer saying than we have trusted the process to take us from League One to the Premier League. We're well known for our use of data, but we're also less well known for the processes that we adopt to make sure that we make the right decisions and achieve the success that we want to achieve over the years. Thank you.
A process which is not linear, and it goes up and down, and that's also what we'd like to hear in the next few minutes. Next, we've got Nicole Beckers, who's the founder of qOAtEk3C6tQ. So how did you get there, and what's your journey as well?
Well, hello everybody. So I started out over 14 years ago at the Dutch Football Federation. So this is a bit of my home stadium. Worked there as a commercial manager for all sponsorships we had. And in 2018, we had a negative process within the federation where we didn't qualify for the World Cup in Russia with the national team. And I was responsible for the Nike partnership, and we bought into a huge amount of clothing and apparel for the World Cup, of course, 18 months in advance. And I asked a simple question to my kit manager colleague, I guess we're not getting that right, that amount. He said, well, yeah, we're going to get that stuff, and we need to find a way to use it. So being, responsible for the commercial department there, I thought of ways to reuse that apparel, but still it was, too much, so we had to destroy some of it. And that's where my process into sustainability and football started, basically. Fast forward 3 years, I founded qOAtEk3C6tQ, where we help football clubs, federations, brands to repurpose their football kit. Because let's be honest, the most valuable and tangible thing we have as a football club is our jersey, is the kit. And how strange is it that after 10 months of use, we're going to destroy it, we shred it, we incinerate it, instead of bringing it back to the homes of their biggest admirers, which are the fans. So my process was getting from the commercial side into sustainability, but keeping in mind that once there's not a valuable and a feasible business model in sustainability, nothing will change. And I think in the last 4 years, we managed to challenge the status quo. And that's an interesting and, like you said, not linear process.
Well, you touched on a lot of things already I'd like to go back to, because you had a vision, you had an idea, now you had a very successful business, so that must have had its own obstacles and hurdles to beat, which we'll get into. And third, we've got Dirk Schulz. Close.
Close. Schlunz, actually.
Okay, sorry. Managing Director Commercial at FC Nuremberg. How was the season? What's your journey? What's the process?
That's a good question. Let's skip the part, how was the season with us this year? It's a pretty short answer. It was not that fruitful, let's say. We stayed in the league with having much bigger hopes in the beginning, but that's how it is. But what was the process? Yeah, actually I was thinking about it. 24 years in the business, pretty long time. Started working for Sport 5, renowned agency that time, and having one particular client, Siemens Mobile, which was the time when Siemens was still producing mobile phones. So that time I also had the pleasure to come here to Ajax, because we were sponsoring Ajax that time with Siemens. The core project was obviously Real Madrid that time, the Galacticos with Beckham, Zidane, and so forth, so which I had a pleasure to work with. And then stayed 15 years in the company, moved to Berlin. We were founding an agency, connecting, consultancy and sponsorship and sales and sponsorship, trying to, bridge the balance and be on both parts, consulting clients, but on the same side also selling our product. And then I went abroad. I went to Israel. Actually, we opened an office in Israel, which I had been running, marketing the entire league, the media rights of the Israeli Football League, and also the media rights of the national team and the sponsorship of the national team. Stayed there, got married there, and actually found my own agency. Working 6 years in Tel Aviv, focusing more on startups and innovation and so forth. And then having 3 children, thinking about coming back to Germany. So I joined FC St. Pauli, where I helped the club to get away from Sport 5. So for 10, 15 years I was bringing Sport 5 to clubs, and then I was starting to help clubs to get away again. So St. Pauli was the first one, and Nuremberg is the second one. So that's actually my journey.
So, 3 different journeys, 3 different stories, and if you don't mind, I'm going to go and stay with each one of you for a few minutes to get parts of the successful side of the story. But more importantly, I think for the audience, it'll be interesting to hear where it became really difficult. Starting with you, Cliff. You've got, from where I look at Brentford, you've got a clear idea of where you're going, what you want, profile of players, profile of managers. You don't have under 23s because it doesn't work for you, blah, blah, blah. So you know where you stand. But the hardest thing in football, I think, is to get everybody think the same way. So how did you manage to do that? How does that work?
I think like all good businesses, and football is a business, first and foremost, it comes from the top. And there was a clear vision and a clear strategy from our owner that we trust the data. The data tells us what we are looking for, and we use the data to drive us. It's not the key, it's not the only thing that we use, particularly in regards to recruitment, but it does tell us what we should think about how we're going to do in a season and the challenges we might face. Obviously, this last season has been particularly difficult for a lot of clubs, Brentford included, with injuries. Many clubs have suffered, and that's just part and parcel of the game, but it's been pretty brutal this year. And so we ended up not doing quite as well as we'd hoped, but we understood why, and the underlying data was still supporting the fact that when our players come back, we should do better. So we trusted the data, And therefore, at no time did we think we were going to get relegated. There were lots of people saying, oh, you know, you're getting a bit close to the bottom three. We never went into the bottom three, and we never believed we would.
Because you are in that place where it has been proven that your process works. But let's go back a little bit further back. You say there's a board, and of course there's a chairman, and there is the visionary.
Yep.
Were they all lined up from the beginning? Was the visionary choosing who was in the board, that kind of thing?
So the board consists primarily of trusted lieutenants of the owner, myself as chair, the director of football, a couple of the other directors. But because of our understanding of the importance of diversity and inclusion, we went out and found some non-exec directors. So we brought in 2 non-exec directors a couple of years ago. We brought 2 in because, frankly, when we went through the process, we found 2 such great candidates, 1 male, 1 female, that we couldn't split them. And so I made the decision to ask both of them to join us on the board. And they come from a different ethnic background to the rest of us on the board. And it's been really a game changer for us in terms of the way in which we look at things, the way in which we go about our business. So that change in how we look at things has been very, very beneficial to the club. But when you go back to the data, one of my favorite stories was we appointed Thomas Frank as head coach in 2018, and he lost 8 of his first 10 matches. And there were lots of people clamoring for him to be sacked. But the underlying data said we were playing well. Our rating within the league was very steady, and we just felt we'd been a bit unlucky. And thankfully, that proved to be the case.
So how important it is in football, which is an emotional business that depends a lot on results, that you have something to hang on to say, yeah, but, you know, the result is not right. The result is not right.
It's tough. It's very tough. And, you know, we're fortunate that we do have that underlying data. And you can get data to support that view elsewhere. But our proprietary data is something we believe in. And so it's an enormous help for us. But we also have a different mindset. We take a medium-term view. And as you know, in football, that's really challenging, because everybody wants success quickly and everybody wants to do well in a very short time scale. But again, through the vision of our owner, we were prepared to take a more medium-term view and trust our process to get there.
So how do you communicate all that the essence of where you are? I understand that obviously the people that come in know what it is about, but you have to constantly remind people, don't you? So not that they start thinking of themselves, but that they remember why they're there. Do you do that constantly? Is there a reminder what who you are?
Yes, of course. I wouldn't say constantly, but when people join the club, they go through an induction process, and we give them the history of where we've come from and what we're trying to achieve. And we all buy into it. And we're fortunate that with the sort of the relative success that we've had, that people can buy into it relatively easily because they have seen it works. Obviously, if it didn't work, it would be much harder. But fortunately for us, it has worked. So it's easier to get people to buy in and see that there is a long-term vision.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's relatively easy to get directors that think like you, or the ones that you need. The profile of the players is relatively easy because there are so many players. You're going to find the players that you need. But that key person there as well, the manager, the head coach, that is perhaps the hardest person to find, that buys the whole thing, and that's why Thomas Frank fits in so well. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we don't always get it right. We have made 1 or 2 mistakes along the way.
Oh, let's talk about those.
But Thomas has been a breath of fresh air. He joined us as a third coach in 2016 because we understood that our head coach at the time was doing well, and then we may lose him. And 2 years later, Dean Smith went off to Aston Villa, and we promoted Thomas from third coach to head coach. And he's just genuinely a really, really nice guy who really knows his football and has built a brilliant ethos within the training camp and the training ground.
I'm privileged to know him and have relatively regular conversations with him. He's one of those things that perhaps all of you have in that world at Brentford, that he listens. You don't get many managers that listen. They just know everything, don't they? But not knowing everything is what I guess you're all about, because you have an idea that you have to abide to.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that had quite a profound effect on me, particularly in my role as chair of the club, was I went to a conference back in, I can't remember when, but circa 2014, and someone sat there on the stage and basically said, one of the problems in football is that there is a knowing culture. People think they know it all. Oh, you have this guy and he knows it, he's done it, he's been there, he gets the people that he knows, and you don't need to tell him what to do. And we've gone completely against that. You know, we trust the data, and therefore we use the data to inform many of our decisions, alongside the normal things that you do in football. So we came at it from a very different view, and that really struck a chord with me, because having a knowing culture means you're not open to ideas, and new ways of doing things. And we knew that we had to be different. We had to find a way. We couldn't outspend our competitors, so we had to find ways of doing things slightly differently to try and improve and make us successful.
I've got one or two more questions for you, but I see Nicole kind of going that yes. I speak to both of you, and then later on to you, Cliff. If you can tell me something you heard today that has, resonates with your own story, or that has made you think. But you did say you made one or two mistakes, and that is also what we're saying. Is football no way is a linear path. So tell us about those mistakes and what you learned from it. How you got to those mistakes, for instance.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We looked to sign a new head coach in 2015. We created a panel of 4 of us, and the 4 of us undertook a series of interviews, and throughout the course of the day. And when it came to the end of the day, the 4 of us were completely aligned. It was really clear to us that there was one chap who was the standout candidate. And so we appointed him. And within 3 months, he was gone.
What did the data say about him? The data confirmed your impression as well, or not?
The data had led us to him, along with the others. And he came across really, really well. But for whatever reason, it just didn't work.
You must know the reason. What was missing that you learned from the following choices?
I think there was a lack of structure at the training ground, a lack of process, funnily enough. And we had to make the tough decision to say, you know what, we can see this isn't working, let's cut our losses and move on.
Has he done well since?
Has he done well since? He's with a team who have managed to stay in the top division in their league.
Okay. So he belongs to a different culture, basically, that kind of manager. Thank you very much for that, Cliff. Now, Nicole, you have come out with a concept which is different, challenging. You obviously part of trusting the process is to actually selling the idea. Was that the hardest thing to do at first?
I don't think the idea, because I think a lot of football fans, football stakeholders get that you don't want to throw out your most emotional, valuable piece of of the club, the jersey. the most important thing was and is it's an area where there are two of the bigger stakeholders of the club involved, being the kit supplier, which is often one of the biggest sponsors, and then also the main sponsor on the front of the jersey. So we had to come out with, one, convincing the club that we had a better solution that could make them money instead of costing them money, but also had social value and emotional value. And once we crossed that hurdle, we had to do the same with the kit supplier and the main sponsor. I must say that the concept which we created is maybe so that simple that people get it. It's just getting commercially right, getting it, from a marketing point of view right, that the club really adopts, encourages and embraces this in the full. I think that's where, a vision comes in, and a vision that's built on the foundation of the club, but that goes into the future and younger generations and Gen Z and sustainability, these topics that are not, in the core business of a football club in general.
Now, let me take one step back, because I learned where the excess of stock, the one that doesn't get used or perhaps gets used and recycled, where it ends up. I never knew this. Tell us about it. Where does it end up?
Well, we did a big research with UEFA last year, and we interviewed Brentford, for example, but a lot of other clubs across Europe, the kit suppliers who are very, scared of sharing data on that point of view. A generic number we came up on was that 60% of the kit that goes into a club, I'm not talking retail, I'm talking about the stuff that a team uses, gets destroyed after the season. So it has a lifespan of 10 months, and then it's being destroyed. 40% is being donated, and then often donation schemes for Africa come up, but that's not really a way of having brand protection and exactly knowing where your stuff ends up, because the beaches in Ghana and Kenya, the markets are flooded with stuff from Europe. So it's sometimes a little bit of a difficult, not transparent way of getting rid of your kit, but cleaning out your own storage so the new kit can come in. And there's some who has that responsibility. Is it the club? Is it the kit supplier supplying the new kit? It's a little bit of a gray area, and we try to open it up, try to be transparent, and try to open the conversation as well.
So you had this idea, which must have come on the back of a lot of conversations and a lot of thinking, your own experience. And then we've gone to the moment where you have to sell it, sell the idea. And at that point, you don't have all the answers, but you have to look like you have all the answers. Is that also part of the job to do?
Absolutely. I think one of the things where I founded FC80 was based on passion. I'm a big football fan myself. I played since I was 5 years old. So a football jersey really means something to me. My first kit is still in my closet. So I think coming from that point of view and saying, hey, a football jersey for a lot of fans who can't go to the game every week, who need to make ends meet every month, that jersey is so valuable. You don't want to throw that out. You want to keep it. You want to cherish it, and you want to honor it. And I think that's where my pitch, so more or less, my pitch always started from that. And I think that's why in 2.5, 3 years we made this huge growth, because people feel it. It's genuine. We're all football crazy people in the office and in the studios. It's been made by refugees and single moms in 5 different countries across Europe. So it's transparent, it's local, it's social. You can say it ticks all the boxes to make, to have momentum, but it comes from a genuine place. And I think that's what helps in our process.
Yeah, you do have all the answers now, quite clearly. You've told that story many times, is how it goes. But at the time where you were learning your own story, you were learning the process, and you had to trust it. Did you find yourself in 1, 2, 3 occasions in which you didn't have the answer to, but you had to trust what you were doing because you believed in it?
100%. Fake it until you make it. When we started out, we knew that this problem was huge. We knew that there could be very cool items being made from old kit that wasn't cannibalizing on the new kit, so it didn't, run into the financials of the club. It was an extra commercial revenue potential. But I had 5 prototypes. That's it. And I had to ship them across Europe to showcase what we could do. And God forbid if some wasn't going to ship the bag back, I had a big problem. So yeah, of course there were times when we, with the 2 of us, my co-founder and me, were like, we've got 2 prototypes left. So if we lose these, we're like, and also you have to find partners that really believe in you as a person. So of course the Dutch Federation in the beginning of FC88 was a massive supporter of the whole idea. And when I quit there, they supported it even more. So like, okay, go, and we're your first federation to sign for a 3-year deal, which of course you need ambassadors. And then once I had the Dutch FA talking to the French and the German and the English, so it cascades into that process. But that first couple of 6 to 12 months, yeah, it was make or break, and luckily we made it.
You touched on something that's very important. That's why qOAtEk is a key date in the calendar, because process is people, and you have to, yes, sell ideas, but you have to be likable, you have to be well dressed, you have to be making sure that you listen, and there is that personal contact that is what makes people grow. So would you take us to a moment of those, perhaps, if you can think of a personal relationship that make the whole thing jump?
100%, and I think maybe he's here. It's Ton from the Dutch FA. He's a licensing manager from the federation, and he knew that we were just starting. He also knew that he had a problem at the federation with a lot of old kit, but he also had Nike on his back, like hammering him, like, what are they going to do with the old kit? Recycle or... And he took a chance on us to give us like, no, I believe in this. He knew the end customer, the fan, so he knew that, yeah, I see this product being sold to fans. That was his belief. I think, and I hope he believed in us from on a personal level and on the business we were building. So yeah, he went to Nike and said, I'm going to do this with them, and I need you on board. And he managed to do that because that's such a pivotal moment then for us. If I would catch him, in a different day in that week, and he was pressured by Nike on some other topic, maybe he wouldn't have moved forward with our topic. So, yeah, that was a pivotal moment, and that means that every time moving forward and talking to students in universities about, setting up your first own business, always that moment comes in mind, and I'm going to tell them it's people who are going to make your idea work. But you're also someone who can make other people's dream work. So, yeah.
I'm going to go off topic a little bit, but you're talking about this happened in Holland, and there is something about the Dutch way of thinking, and we are in the Johan Cruyff Arena, that I find fascinating. You just said that a representative of the Dutch FA went to Nike and said, nah, not with you. Which is massive, and it seems like a common theme in Dutch thinking, that the why not question, which is Johan Cruyff. Johan Cruyff was, why not? Let's do this, but nobody does this. Pues let's do it, why not? Let's put Pep Guardiola center midfield, but he's tiny and he's 19 and he's not physical.
Trust the process.
Trust the process, because he believed that there was, but there's also this is the line, and Dutch people seem to think there's this other why, and why not?
I think challenging status quo is something there, that and I know that from a Dutch football perspective, we're a tiny country. So we don't have the biggest budgets, we don't have the bigger pool of players, we don't have the biggest clubs and their budgets. So we have to think differently to, be able to compete with bigger countries, bigger companies, bigger brands, etc. And I think that is somewhere in my DNA as well. Like, I'm going to challenge Nike, Adidas, and Puma. And look at me, fast forward, I'm talking to all of them on a global scale to help them with their problem, because basically it's their problem, or they started with the problem and now they want to help. I want to help them to have a good solution. But yeah, of course we're like 50 people in the studios, 4 in the office. But hi Nike, here I am. But I think, again, genuine, good idea, and then the the belief in that process.
The bravery as well.
Yeah, but maybe also because you believe in what you're trying to sell. I think it's in a lot of Dutch people, and sometimes it also can come across as blunt or rude. But yeah, I think we probably know what we want, and hopefully we can then work towards that.
Fascinating, I find that. Anything you learned from Cliff and what he was telling us?
Well, I've been talking to a lot of colleagues of him, and I think it's not just on the sportive side that DNA and culture is very well cultivated. Brentford was the first Premier League club that relegated their jersey 2 years, so they used their home kit 2 years during COVID because they said, great insight, like, okay, fans are struggling paying the bills, they're at home, we're not going to launch a new kit. You know, the kit supplier stayed the same, the sponsor stayed the same. We're going to use it for 2 years. We're not going to push a new kit on the fans. And I think you did it the next year over the away jersey. And that's, you know, I think that's exactly this. We're trusting the process. Fans are going to be more engaged with the club if we do this. Then we're going to push a new kit on them and try to sell a couple of 100,000.
Thank you, Nicole. And Derek, it's your chance to tell us what's your club about? Because every football club needs a story. What's your story?
Very true, very true. No, I was listening with great interest to what you both were telling, and I think there are some really sharp points which I would come to. To answer your question, what we are about, we are currently in the second league, so we don't have a big sportive story to tell, but we have quite some heritage and tradition, which I actually don't like to talk too much about because everyone is coming up with this, you're a traditional club and so forth. Nothing that really helps us today, to be honest. So what we are trying to do is, because we don't have any ownership, we are fully community-owned, non-profit football club, which has some advantages in terms of, you know, participation and what we can do. But it also has some disadvantages because every euro we spend, we have to earn before. There's no one behind us, you know, helping out in a bad moment, which apparently was our problem sometimes in the past. So what we are trying to do is to distinguish ourselves from other clubs in our region. We understand that at the moment we are not top in German football, but we play a big role in our area, and we are trying to focus on, beside the sport, beside trying to reach the first league, we are trying to focus on charity events. We are trying to focus on social responsibility, on sustainability. So this is something where we are really heavily investing for a second division team. We have 11 people working full-time in corporate social responsibility. We are making more than 500 single events in the region about that. We have a platform with more than 15,000 people inside that. So that is probably our story, where we believe that it's not like for marketing purpose, but actually to, you know, get a relevance in people's life beside playing football. But that is our, if you want, our story or our positioning. But what is really interesting, what you said, is the innovation mindset and the innovation culture, which I'm also trying to bring in from my experience. I worked like 5-6 years in the startup ecosystem in Tel Aviv, which is one of the most, you know, inspiring and ideaful system in the world. And there is many things that I believe that professional football and organizations can learn from the startup ecosystem and from the culture that those startups bring with. And there is this thing when you talk about corporate culture, and everyone means we need to have a good corporate culture, but no one is really able to define what it means, what you have to do in order to get a good culture. And there are the three layers, if I may roll this out. The one is the basic thing, how we treat humans. That is the easy part. How we interact with each other. Are we nice to each other? Is there an employee breakfast, a Christmas party? Are there free drinks in the kitchen for the employees? All these things which are important, but they are just the basis. The second layer is already much more interesting when it comes to corporate culture, is basically the way things are done. Are they done with passion? Are they done with thoughtful? Or are they just done by routine, or is there really a mindset behind? That's what you said, how you are actually producing your bags. Who is producing them? It's part of your story, as I understand. So how you do things with your customers internally, this is really defining very heavily your corporate culture. But the most important thing, and that's what I learned in many startups, is that corporate culture comes always top down. So it's really about the leadership, and it's the question, which kind of behavior in your organization are you rewarding, which one are you sanctioning, and which one are you ignoring? This will set your corporate culture, and that is something that startups really learned by nature. They know, if I want to have an innovative mindset, and that's what we need, because we are a small club, we don't have money. So what we have is people, we have limited resources, so we have to have better ideas. We have to be smarter than the big rich clubs. That's what we did pretty well, I think, in St. Pauli, with basically no money, but good ideas. So we came up, and the point behind was really the culture, because leadership was rewarding people who were critical, who were even, raising the voice and mentioning concerns towards leadership, bringing up ideas, were able to fail. We had huge, excuse my French, fuck-ups, We launched a couple of things that really blow up, but we always had the culture that people said, okay, you try, because no one gives you guarantee you're gonna succeed.
Let's go back to those couple of things that you didn't get right. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't my last position, but
somebody else's.
I can still tell. So there was an idea of making a fan TV video content show that would kind of adapt to the shopping television formats. Okay, so it would be kind of trying to make a persiflage, to make a little bit, take this further and make it even more absurd. So, and people, I say, didn't get it, but they complained that it absolutely doesn't fit, and it completely flopped, So it was a lot of work in the concept and launching it and casting the moderators and whatever, and it just no one bothered and cared. So
your club is fascinating then, because you're actually is like a democratic. You create your identity through the democracy of ideas. You've got a lot of people creating your identity. So to follow the path is not as easy as Brentford, which is all clear. Is vision, data. In your case, you want to introduce all those people that make the club to be part of it, not just clients. But so makes the trusting the process a harder thing to do, because does it even sometimes get out of your hands and goes in a direction that you don't want to, but that's what the club is becoming?
That is the big risk. That is probably the big risk compared to a club with a ownership, where you have a strategy and a structure that you can follow a strategy, and you trust the process. And even if everyone demanding to sack the coach, you say, no, I know, and I have the backing because I have a ownership who's behind it. That's something we are really struggling with. When the fans are rolling out banners, sack the board or sack the coach, because our board is voted by the members, and the members are standing in the stadium. So eventually, once a year, they're going to vote, and they are voting for the board, which is hiring the managers. So that causes, in the end of the story, that the board is listening very closely to what the fans are demanding. So yes, it's always an opportunity, this democratic process, because you get fans involved and so forth, but you are always, tend to make short-term decisions which are not good for the long run. So this is really a problem. But also internally, but this is something I'm trying to bring into the club, is this cultural aspect. When we are making decisions, it's usually, and especially in Germany, we tend to promote people into leadership roles who know what they are doing in their subject, rather than real leaders who are able to lead people and maybe not know everything about the subject they are running. So, for example, when we are taking decisions and we have our group meetings, it's one of the rules that leadership talks last, because for all the young members in the team would be very hard if me or a colleague as a leadership making a statement what we believe about one topic for a young colleague to say something completely different, and maybe he's right. So the young ones speak always first, very core rule. Same with experts. We have some people in our team that are digital experts. So whenever we discuss digital projects or whatever, he's talking last because he's the expert. So everyone would say if this is his opinion, no one would probably contradict. So there are very easy things. Another thing is talking about the word because. Whenever we take a decision and we explain it to the team, trying to use the word because as often as possible, because that makes it, sounds silly and trivial, but it's, in fact, in real business life, too often it's not happening, that you explain why you are deciding.
Can I just remind you, Dirk, that you actually got involved in a business of emotions, or in an emotional business, and you're trying to apply logic. Good luck with that.
Yeah, but you have to try. You have to try.
You have to try. You already touched on things that you heard, that you've learned from. So, Cliff, I'll give you the last word before we go. What do you hear from Nicole, from Dirk, that you will apply to yourself, or that resonates with your own journey?
Yeah, I think you have to remember where you come from. And as you said, you need to try things. You need to trust in what you have learnt in your past that's worked, and just follow that vision, follow that process, and be confident that what you believe in is the right thing to do. And if it continues to work, then great. And when it doesn't work, okay, you put it down to experience and you move on.
And that's how we go full circle. And you just told us, trust the process. Cliff, Nicole, Dirk, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.